All right, so it's that time to welcome our next guest. And, I mean, this person, he is truly an entertainment jack of all trades. Whether he's a comedian, a motivational speaker, a pianist, a singer, and now he can add to the resume, an author. Let's welcome the man, the myth, the legend himself, the man known as Sarge. What's up, Sarge?
I'm also the co-Scripps 2015 National Spelling Bee champion. They have co-champions this year. They have co-champions. It's two kids. Two kids are fighting over one crappy alloy tin trophy on ESPN right now for the co-championship of the Scripps National Spelling Bee.
No, stop it.
And they both have to. They both want to take it home with them back to India. I don't think it's fair.
Oh, what has this world come to? They're fighting in spelling bees now.
Well, the last kid would have won, but he got tripped up on border fence. Border fence.
Really?
I'm kidding. Come on.
Okay.
I'm a comedian, you remember?
I know. But you know what? Before we even talk about all that other stuff, I mean, something, you know, as I was doing my research on you and looking over stuff, I mean, seriously, you have your picture on the wall at the Carnegie Deli. I mean, can we just stop right there? I mean, isn't that like you made it? That's it?
That's a Jewish Oscar. That's a Jewish Oscar. If you're on the wall at Carnegie Deli, it means you've consumed your weight in pastrami, which only really takes one sandwich, because they put 7 pounds of meat on like 2 little tiny husks of rye bread, and you sit there with a fork shoving it in until it comes out of your ass like whole. I mean, it's like unbelievable. The best pastrami on the planet. I don't know what people are talking about Second Avenue Deli. Katz's. I like fatty pastrami. I like this. This is the best pastrami on the planet, and it's at Carnegie.
It sounds delicious. I was.
Have you ever been there? Have you ever been there?
I've never been there. Never been there.
You have a 718 number, and you've never been to the Carnegie Deli? That's unbelievable.
Our studio line is New York numbers with 718, but I'm actually in Philly.
I love Philly.
There you go.
Well, you got cheesesteaks. I mean, so that's your thing.
Yeah, we got cheesesteaks, but you can't get a cheesesteak that's 7 pounds. You can get a 5-pound one, but not 7.
Oh no, but you'll wait online. I mean, for a cheesesteak, which is Geno's or Pat's? Which is yours?
Geno's.
Yeah, you're a Geno's guy.
I'm a Geno's guy.
You know what? I'm a White House guy from Atlantic City. You ever been to Atlantic City?
Actually, I was just there last week, but I was not at White House. No.
Best cheesesteak you ever had. They make the fresh semolina like hoagie bread, and they hollow it out, and they put in the lean steak and the provolone with the onions, and it's so tall they give it to you in a grocery bag, and literally half the sandwich is sticking out the top of the bread, the top of the bag. So you literally can only eat half of it, and you have to save the other half. It's unbelievable, and it's amazing. And my picture's on the wall there, too. So, like, when you go around to, like, eateries, do you just, like, carry a briefcase of pictures with you just in case? No. I mean, there's an old joke in New York that, every single diner has a picture of Ernie Anastas, who's like a New York news anchor. He's been there for, like, 40 years. And, I go to just the Carnegie, and that's the only place where my picture is. There may be a couple of diners around the country right near entertainment spots where I've done performing arts centers, but Carnegie I was going into since I was a little kid, since my grandfather used to take me in there, and he was best friends with the guy that owned the place. And subsequently, I'm on the list there. There's a list. There's a book under the counter. It's an old ledger book with nothing but showbiz people in it, everything from mayors, the Marx Brothers, all these different people. And if the owner saw you perform up in the Catskill Mountains, which is your version of the Poconos back in those days, the Poconos.
The Poconos.
I'm from Bala Cynwyd. We're going to the Poconos, and then we're going to Lower Merion and Upper Darby and Cheltenham.
Yo, anyway, Upper Darby's my hometown. Look at you.
See what I mean? I did my research. So to make
you did.
One of my best.
That's
friends,
awesome.
one of my best friends is an artist from Philadelphia, a guy named Joey Feldman, and you should check
you know
him
what?
out on
I'm very good friends with Joey.
Joey is dope, and you guys were just talking about comic books. Talk about a comic book artist. This kid is off the charts. I mean, he's brilliant.
He's the man. Yeah, actually, I met Joey. It's about 15, 16 years ago. I was involved in the world of pro wrestling, and we had a mutual. He was the Badger, Joey F. Yes,
the Badger. Right? I thought it was the Wolverine. He was the Badger.
Yep. Yeah, and we were actually like business partners in promoting shows, and yeah, he was doing his the Badger gimmick, and yeah, he was like Wolverine. Yep.
Oh, he's amazing. He was friends with DJ Adam too, right?
DJ,
Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah, the kid that passed away from Philly. He was like a big DJ, and he passed away from Philly. Yeah, Joey's an awesome dude. So to make a long story short, I've been going into Carnegie my entire life, and the owner of the place, an old man named Leo, saw me perform up in the Catskills, and I used to do a joke at the end of my set when I used to open for people like the Four Tops, the Temptations, Paul Anka, right? So right before these people would come on, you'd have to have a joke to get off with. I'd say, well, I got to get off now. I'm on the Carnegie Deli diet. I'm going to have a pastrami sandwich, a Kaddish. I'm going to have some crepe lox, some matzo ball soup, a piece of cheesecake you can use as a chock for the wheels of a 747, and a Diet Dr. Brown cream soda.
That would be me. You got to finish it off with a diet soda.
That's what I'm saying. You got to wash it down with like no calories. So when the owner heard me say that, he came into my dressing room afterwards. He loved my show. He said, "Hey, you tell my son-in-law you're in the book." So I said, "What does that mean?" He goes, "He'll know. You just tell him." So, going there, I mean, a cheesecake, a soda, some French fries, and a diet soda, that's like $90 over there. So one day I'm sitting there, I'm having lunch with a friend, and the food's coming, and we're eating, we're having a great time, and the waitress comes, and she brings the check, and it's like $104, and I said, "Yeah, I'm in the book." She goes, "Yeah, me too, under plumbing supplies." So I said, "No, I'm serious, I'm in the book." So she went in the front, and she checked. She says, "Oh, my God, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. You are in the book. You don't have to pay, ever."
Wow.
Yeah, talk about a gift card.
Oh, when you taking me?
Well, right after I get over my last stroke from eating there. They should have like a funeral director and an ambulance waiting with the paddles ready with the defibrillator.
Oh, that's so awesome. Well, that's a pretty great honor, right?
Oh, absolutely. In show business, that's as big as it comes, other than bombing at the Tonys. I mean, other than that, that's a big honor. The Carnegie Deli. I mean, everyone's eating there. Everyone goes there. It's like people come from all over the world to go there. So to sit at the back table with the owner and have a sandwich and be part of the family, that's kind of a showbiz thing. I mean,
absolutely,
it's cool. Yeah,
very cool. So,
it's very cool.
The name Sarge. I mean, where did that come from? You like a military guy or?
No, it was college. I was at Boston University. I was playing football, and the coach called me Sarge because he told me I looked like the dog from Beetle Bailey. So he gave me the nickname, and then it stuck, and that was it. 1980, 81, and I couldn't convince people that wasn't my name, and it was really the first time I ever had a nickname that I was actually proud of, because all the other nicknames I had as a kid, I was a fat kid. They called me Kool-Aid. Every time I walk into a room, they'd go, "Oh yeah." They called. I'm serious. I had some really horrible nicknames. So Sarge was like a cool one. I figured, you know what? I don't mind this one so much. And now that I'm in show business, it's taken me right to the very bottom of the middle of the pack in show business.
Nice. It's the slow climb, but you're getting there. You're at the bottom of the middle.
You know what? Just to do this for a living is the greatest gift in the world. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. You do this for fun. You do this for not a hobby, but you do it because you love it.
Right.
And that's why I do it. I don't do it because I gave up wanting to be a star in show business a long time ago. The whole idea is every night you get to do this, and the audience loves what you're doing. And I don't work comedy clubs. I work theaters and performing arts centers. And these are people who are a little bit older, maybe, over 45. They're between 45 and dead. And they've seen everybody. They've seen all the greats, from start to finish over the last 50 years. And so to have an audience that's more savvy and more showbiz, it's not the same as working like, the Yuckity Hut or the Funny Shack over in, in Indianapolis or some of these places. It's a higher level of entertainment, and it's more like the old days. And so it's very gratifying and very exciting, and the fact that they pay me, anything at all, and I do pretty well, is a miracle and a gift and phenomenal. So I love what I do. It's a labor of love. It's not work, and that's what I love. I did radio for a while. I was on Fox Sports Radio, and I did a national show out of Los Angeles. I was one of the charter hosts. One of your local guys in Philadelphia, Tony Bruno, was one of the first big hosts on Fox Sports Radio. I'm sure you know Tony.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, check that out. You got some Philly ties here. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, you look, New York's not that far from Philly. I used to work at NFL Films over in Pensacola and Mount Laurel.
Yeah? Look at that.
Yeah, I used to work over there. I worked in-house at NFL Films. I wrote over there. I got to work for the Sables. I got to do that kind of thing, and I was staying over. One of my best friends lives in Marlton, New Jersey now, but he's from Philly. He's an accountant from Philly, and he played at Lower Merion. He was the goalie on the hockey team at Lower Merion.
Okay.
And we both went to college together, and I went to Emory in Atlanta. We had a really shitty hockey team. And my friend from Philly was the goalie, a kid named Rosenberg. And so I have a lot of friends in Philly. I love Philly.
Cool. Very cool. So you've had like a pretty wild life, it sounds like, and you put it all down into a book now.
Yeah, well, I had very strange, auspicious beginnings. I was adopted at birth, and my birth parents didn't know that my Orthodox Jewish mother had a black man that impregnated her. And all she did was go to have the baby and not tell anybody that she had a black lover. So they didn't know I was mixed race. And back in the early 60s, things were not good for black people.
Right.
So you can imagine what they were like for mixed race people, because you didn't even fit with the blacks. So I was 2 notches below being persecuted and hosed and beaten and chased. I mean, it's really amazing, like in my lifetime, what we've gone through as, multiracial people, and then to see all the stuff that's going on in the news now with Ferguson and Cleveland,
right,
and all these places where, police brutality is present, and all of the ills of society are coming to the surface. But back when I was born, my parents didn't know. My adopted parents did not know that I was multiracial. Everyone else seemed to, but they didn't really care, and they didn't know. They were in denial. They're Jews, and most Jews live in a constant state of anxiety, neuroses, and denial. So I grew up not knowing what I was, and had some musical talent when I was 5. Went to a music conservatory in New York, a place called Juilliard, and I was kind of a gifted kid, but still racially downtrodden. Went to private schools, went to prep school in Connecticut, went to Emory, failed out, went to BU, failed out, got jobs in New York in the modeling industry. By 24, I had my own modeling agency. I had already worked at Wilhelmina and Elite, and snorted my way out of there. I found drugs and alcohol, took away the pain of the shame that I had. I really never liked myself. I don't know what that was about, but I just lived a constant life of shame and self-hatred. And I took to drugs and alcohol, and then decided I was going to be a sportscaster. And I called Major League Baseball. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just, like, how did that, I mean, because at one point I was seeing, like you were homeless and
well, what happened was I decided I wanted to be a sportscaster. After I snorted coke and got myself thrown out of my own business. My partners just bought me out and said, get out of here. I ended up deciding I always wanted to be a sportscaster. And, you know, you being from the tri-state region there, I mean, you have a very strong sports heritage and announcers where you're from. And I don't know if you are a Phillies fan. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I grew up with Marv Albert.
Okay.
And Marv Albert did hockey, baseball, basketball. Marv did everything, and I wanted to be Marv. And ironically, you know, the only thing I had in my act as a comedian working up my way through the chains in New York was I had a Marv Albert impression. And I would do Marv Albert, 106-102, Knicks with a 4-point lead, and Patrick Ewing with a running one-hander. And I used to do Marv Albert for like 15 minutes. And I'd say bizarre things. I said, Marv sounds like he's trying to take a dump, and he can't. He's constipated. And I can't seem to get it out right now. 3:31 remaining, and I can't seem to find any toilet paper. You know, and that's all I did. It was a ridiculous, horrible bit. But one day I went out to Shea Stadium to a Met game against the Giants and recorded myself on tape doing the game into a tape recorder. And ultimately, I thought it sounded like a real game broadcast. So I called Major League Baseball on my birthday when I was 26 years old. And I wanted to talk to the commissioner of baseball to find out where I could send the tape to get a job as a play-by-play announcer in Major League Baseball. And she said, is it really your birthday? And I said, yeah. And she says, well, the commissioner can't come to the phone right now, but I'll tell you what, come up to Major League Baseball offices, and I'll leave you a gift for your birthday. So I took a taxi over to Major League Baseball offices, and I picked up an envelope. And in the envelope, the woman had taken all the cards of all the networks in pro sports and Xeroxed them and left me Xerox copies of all the inside phone numbers for all the networks.
Oh, shit.
I know. So I took the list home. I sparked a joint. I took off all my clothes. I'm standing there naked, smoking a joint on the phone. And I start dialing the phone, you know, alphabetical order. The first one was ABC. And I called the phone number, and this guy answers the phone. He says, hello, sports. I said, how you doing? I said, it's my birthday. My name is Sarge. I want to be a sportscaster. I'm willing to start at the bottom. Would you hire me? I have a great tape. Here, let me play it for you. He says, hold on. He says, hold on. He says, who is this? So I said, it's Sarge. It's my birthday. I want to be a sportscaster. I'll sweep the floors. I don't care. I'll empty the trash. So the guy goes, well, I'm not really the guy you want to talk to. I said, why not? I'm talking to you. He says, I know, but I kind of run the network. I said, oh, I'm sorry. He says, yeah, I'm Rune Arledge. So I said, Rune Arledge? I had no idea who he was. He was the president of ABC Network.
Oh.
He says, I kind of don't do the hiring around here. So but let me put you through to, he says, you seem like a decent guy. Is it really your birthday? I said, yeah. He says, well, happy birthday. He says, talk to this next guy and just tell him what you told me. Good luck. And he patched me through to the next guy. And I did the same conversation again. It's my birthday. I want to be a sportscaster. The guy says, who the hell is this? So I said, it's Sarge. He says, well, how did you get my extension? I said, I was just on the phone with Rune. He says, you were on the phone with Rune? I said, yeah. I said, Rune put me through to you. He says, well, I'm not the guy that does the hiring. I'm the president of ABC Wide World of Sports. So I said, okay. So as it turns out, I was the joke all these guys were playing on each other. And the fourth guy said, what are you doing this weekend? And I said, I don't know. I said, I'm around. He goes, meet us in Atlantic City. You'll work on boxing coverage. And so I went down to Atlantic City, and I showed up at the Trump Plaza over there by the convention center, by the ABC trucks, and they hired me as a lunch boy for boxing coverage. And that's how I got into sports broadcasting. I started that Saturday. You know, I guess it must have been 1986. And it was a very proud time for me. I thought that I was going to be announcing the boxing match. I didn't realize I was the lunch boy.
Yeah, so you probably went there expecting to be like calling the fight and all, and and they're sending you for lunch.
Well, as it turns out, they made me the assistant to the announcers. So the way I looked at it, I was right on the shoulder of Dan Beardorf and this announcer named Alex Walla who did boxing, and I was right on their shoulder. So the way I thought it, I figured if one of them gets sick, I'm fucking on the air. Give me the headset.
You're like the vice president. If the president goes down, you're filling in.
That's exactly right. So I started at ABC. I got fired. I got hired at CBS Sports. Worked a whole bunch of Super Bowls and Final Fours and World Series stuff, and then got fired from there. And then shortly after I got fired from there, I took back to the drugs in a big way, and I ended up homeless. I ended up without a place to live, without a pot to piss in. Ended up, on the streets. And I was out in the middle of in the fall when it started getting cold and through the beginning of winter, and I had no place to go, and I was too ashamed to tell anybody what happened to me. So I just pretended I was still working in the city in New York, and I ended up just with a huge crack and angel dust problem. I was smoking PCP and angel dust PCP and crack together, in the same pipe, and ended up homeless. And I had a buddy of mine who's my only friend I had left that I didn't either rob their house or lie to or steal money from, at that time, because I was in such dire straits. This one buddy of mine, he let me stay at his apartment one day, left his keys, and I stayed at his apartment, and I cleaned up, and I showered up, and I took all his valuables, his watches, his rings, his bracelet, and I hawked it for drugs. And he came and found me, and he asked me what happened, and I said I took all his stuff, and I was about 360 pounds at that time, too. And so he says to me, he comes and finds me, and he says, do you know anything about my missing stuff? And I said, yeah, well, I couldn't lie to this guy. He was such a sweet guy. I said, listen, I stole your stuff. I was using drugs. He says, what drugs? I said, well, I smoke a lot of crack. So he looked at me. I'm like 360. He says, you smoke crack? You sure you're not smoking Crisco? I said, no. I said, I'm smoking. He said, what? It must be pretty high-calorie crack. And I said, well, I got a big problem. And he says, well, let's get you some help. And then one day later, I was in Florida in Delray Beach, went to treatment. The guy told me to pray to God for the obsession to be removed from my life to drink and drug. And the next day I woke up and I had no desire to do it. And I've been getting high for 10 years at that point. And it's been 24 years since.
Well, that right there, that's freaking amazing, and congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow. I mean, I have a family member who's going through addiction problems, and it's been a nightmare. And to be able to do that, I mean, this person, he's been in and out of rehabs and recovery houses, I mean, probably a dozen of each. And it's just, to be able to do that, what do you think was like the number one thing that really clicked in your head to make you want to do it?
To make me want to get well, or to make me want to stay fucked up?
No, to make you want to get well.
There was a small voice inside of me, even though I was doing it, that kept saying, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep doing this. When I robbed my grandmother's apartment, I was saying to myself, I can't believe I'm doing this. I can't believe I'm doing this. I got to stop doing this. And there's a small voice inside of you that keeps saying, this is the last hit. This is the last drink. This is the last drug. This is the last time I'm going to steal from a friend. This is the last time I'm going to do this. And then ultimately, I know this sounds incredibly bizarre, but, sometimes the universe intervenes and gives you a window of opportunity. And, what people don't realize is that addiction is what causes addiction. The drugs don't cause the addiction. The drugs activate the addiction. But inside of every person who's an addict is the propensity for addiction. And when you add drugs to it, or alcohol, or gambling, or sex, or any of the other things, if you're pre-wired to be an addict, you just add one of those substances or one of those activities, and it activates the addiction. And so for your relative who's been through treatment, God only knows how many times, there's a small voice inside of him that's just like the one inside of me that says, I can't keep doing this, I can't keep doing this, I got to stop doing this. And the reason why he hasn't stopped yet, and the reason why I did stop, was because I've taken an active part. It's a do-it-yourself deal. In other words,
right.
No treatment center, no surgery, no medication is going to arrest your addiction. The only thing that can arrest your addiction is your willingness to stop. And until your relative reaches that willingness point, until he's hit, maybe it's the 13th treatment center, maybe it's right now, maybe it's next week, until he reaches the point where he can actually listen to that voice that says, I got to stop doing this, he can't stop doing what he can't stop doing.
Right.
And that's what people don't understand about addiction. Addicts aren't stupid. They're not fucked up people. You wouldn't say that about somebody with cancer or leukemia.
Sure.
But with that disease, those diseases do whatever the fuck they want to do. If you have an inoperable brain tumor, it's going to do, how many times do people have brain tumors taken out and they come back?
Yeah, exactly.
With this disease, the person suffering from the disease has to say, no more, I don't. Not I can't, not I shouldn't, I don't. I don't. And no matter how hard this is, I don't. I don't do this. I don't steal. I don't lie. I don't take drugs. I don't drink no matter what. I don't. And it's do it yourself. There's no treatment center that can do it for you. There's no method. There's no plan. The person, the individual, the sick human being has to say, I don't. That's it. And until they do, they do.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I've been saying to other family members. We can talk to her blue in her face, but it's not us. That person needs to make the choice to finally want to get better.
That's right. And if the part of him that wants to stay sick is still in control, then the part of him that wants to get well will continue to be led around by his nose until such time as he either dies or gets to the point where he's almost dead. Because really, that's the point most addicts have to be at. They
right.
have to be at the point where their back is to the wall, the gun is to their head, and they finally either find the willingness to want to live or the willingness to continue doing what they're doing. And that's kind of why I wrote the book. I wrote the book because my life, has had so many phenomenal, unbelievable, extraordinary turns in it right from the start. I mean, it's been a tremendous miracle of connect the dots. But I got married for the second time much later in life and had a child at 47, and I lost a friend of mine who died at 47 years old and left behind two small kids. And so I determined myself, I said, you know what? I said, I want this kid who's now 6, I want him to know everything I've been through, every place I've been, everything I've done. I want him to know my amazing life, because if suddenly one day I'm dead and I'm not here anymore, nobody will be able to tell him everything his father had been through, everything his father did. So I sat down, and for 8 weeks I went into a foxhole and I wrote this 232-page book called I'm Still Standing Up, and it's all about overcoming life's obstacles and how I did it and all the amazing things I've been through. And, the statement I made about my life was I love life, just not my life.
Right.
And now I love my life. And that's the bridge you have to cross. You have to get from I love life, just not my life, to I love life. And how do you get there? How do you get there? So the book is all about how you get there. The book is all about how you go about that and how you achieve and overcome some of life's biggest obstacles. And one of them is addiction, and that's the one that I'm an expert at. I've grown up with it, and Listen, I was an Oreo, Ho-Hos, Devil Dogs, Tasty Cake. You know those Tasty Cake cherry pies?
Oh, yes.
and the crimpets?
Yes,
oh
I
my
do.
God. Yeah, well, I could eat those like I smoked crack. So I'm an addict to the I'm an addict to the core. I mean, from head to toe. I mean, I know that, but I don't describe myself as a human being. I describe myself as an addict being. And the interesting thing is, human beings need to breathe, eat, shit, piss. Those are bodily functions. And addicts need to engage some degree of a spiritual life. There's some connection between meditation, affirmations, and prayer, which change the course of an addict's life. And until an addict engages in finding a higher power, and it doesn't have to be God, it can be the universe. It could be the planets, the stars, the oceans, it could be, all of creation, the galaxies. I mean, have you ever walked outside and looked at the sky and not been blown away at night?
Absolutely.
Something's in charge of that. Something's got the magnetic field that keeps the planets where they are, and that creates weather, and that keeps the Earth on its axis, and then has the tide coming in and the moon coming out every night in varying stages. So there's something in charge of all that, and it's not me. I kind of defer to that. The amazingness
it's the
of
Carnegie
the universe.
Deli. They're in charge of it.
Well, that's pastrami. They're in charge of pastrami. They're in charge of pastrami and cheesecake. Have you ever had their cheesecake?
I've never had nothing from there.
Dude, you have to go there. It's only 86 miles away. I mean, for Christ's sake, drive into the city and go have their cheesecake. It's totally...
Drive 86 miles and spend $86 for one.
Well, I mean, you can wait until the Eagles come play the Giants or something, and then you can go across the turnpike and go do that. How about the Eagles this year?
I actually have three co-hosts that are very quiet during the interviews, and one of them is a diehard Eagles fan. Hey, Moondog, Eagles.
You have got to feel as good this year about the Eagles as you could have in the last 25 years.
You know what? I feel scared.
Why?
Why?
You got 9 quarterbacks in camp. You've got an all-world running back. You finally have a coach that has a clue. Not some walrus standing over there. Not some walrus with a push broom on his face. We're talking about a guy that knows how to win. You've got a tenacious defense. You have a chance this year.
It was kind of funny this morning on our local news. They had a former Eagle, and I think he was a Packer as well, Mark McMillan, and they were talking about the changes, and they rated the changes, and they broke down the quarterback position, the running back, wide receiver, and then the defense. And between all the offensive positions, we've gone down, he feels, that we're not as good as we were last year.
Well, I got to tell you something. You have a running back now that can break a play for the end zone on every single play. Shady was about getting something out of nothing, Shady McCoy. Whereas this guy gets something all the time. That's first of all. And second of all, you're a system team. You're not a talent team. You're a system team. And a system team, you have a system. It doesn't matter who – they plug people into the system, and this system is extraordinary. So, I think that with this year, Kelly having more control over personnel decisions, I certainly think that no matter what Mark McMillan says or what Bill Werndell says at WCAU or anything else that's going on in Philadelphia, I really do believe that with this coach making the personnel decisions within his system, I think you're better than you were last year.
I hope. I'll contact you when the season is halfway through, and then we'll rediscover and retalk the whole situation.
Well, now you just have to have Kelly do the personnel decisions for the Sixers, and then you'll be fine.
What a cluster they are! And I'll tell you what, the Eagles Giants, I will never go back to an Eagles-Giants game. The last time I went to one was the last game of the season. It was still at the Vet, and my cousin, for his wedding, he took his whole wedding party and some friends to the Eagles-Giants game. We're in the 700 level. He brought his poor father and future father-in-law along, and don't you know, a fight breaks out behind us, and like a wave of people are just rolling over each other. My one cousin got stuck in a chair, and the chair closed up on his leg. They had to come bring up a stretcher for him. It was a mess. Never again.
Oh my God, that's unbelievable. Well, Philly fans are notorious. You guys are notorious for that. I mean, Giant fans just yell at you. Philly fans, you guys kick Santa Claus ass. I mean, that's just, you threw ice balls at Santa Claus.
Yeah, we have issues. We have definite issues. But, you know, going back to your book, though, I mean, we could sit and talk sports all night, but, you know, going back to your book, and real quick, I was going over tidbits of it, and the one thing that really moved me, and you mentioned your son, who's 6 years old. I mean, you wrote this letter to him, and I mean, it was a pretty long letter, but the opening part of it, which I would love to read. I mean, it was just beautiful and so heartfelt, and you can just feel the love in your words, which is so moving. And it's, to my dear little man Xander, my gorgeous son, while I'm writing this letter, you're running around the house at 1 p.m, humming and playing and full of energy, joy, total and complete joy. Wow, I just got a bit choked up writing that. Right there alone, I was just like, I was thinking of your son now as a grown man going back and reading this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know, I was, you know, the differential between me and him is that, you know, I was never happy growing up as a kid because I was always so picked on. My family, you know, both of my parents smoked. They yelled a lot. There was a lot of abusive conversation going on all the time. And, you know, in the old days, people didn't parent like they do today. You know, my parents were just people who had a kid.
Right.
Today people parent. But just the differential between my son growing up in a house that's full of love, just the fact that he's a happy kid, just the fact that, you know, he will never get a spanking or a beating from me or a tongue lashing, and hasn't his entire life so far. You know, it's really funny. It's like you could have bad parents or parents that don't really know how to parent, and they teach you just as much about being a good parent as somebody who's a good parent, because all you have to do is do the opposite of what they did, and you're doing it perfectly. And my parents, you know, they really didn't know how to be parents. They weren't prepared for it. I was adopted, and they didn't have any other kids, so they were just doing what they were doing. But with my son, you know, it's a miracle just because I shouldn't even be here. The fact that I'm still alive and that I get to stand in front of thousands of people and be this entertainer guy and be funny, and make a living that way is just, that's a miracle. But the fact that I've been given a healthy child and a great marriage with a really cool lady, I mean, I should be dead. You know, if there was any justice in the universe, we wouldn't be on the phone right now. There are people who, you know, I mean, like that ferry disaster in South Korea when those kids went on that field trip and that ferry sunk and all those kids died. It's like the universe is not a fair place.
No.
People die in plane crashes. People die in ferry disasters. People die in tornadoes, fires, all kinds of things. And here I was poisoning myself for most of my 20s and parading around in the worst neighborhoods in New York and in Spanish Harlem. And no one ever laid a finger on me. And there are people that die from eating too many salty foods or from a bad heart. I was smoking enough drugs like it was my job to kill me 50 times. And I came back even stronger. And I get to have this amazing life. So, you know, don't tell me that there aren't miracles. It's a miracle. And I just, you know, that's what makes me grateful is that I realize how wrong I was, and I've lived the rest of my life trying to do things the right way and trying to be right and trying to help others, and so I've naturally morphed into a drug and alcohol counselor, and I work in treatment centers, and I work with people that are trying to get the message. And when we get off the air, if you want to text me, maybe we can try and help your cousin get some resolution. I work in about 15 different treatment centers around the country. I'm going to LA next week from Sunday to Friday and work in the treatment centers out there. And what I do is I use my sense of humor and my comedy and infuse it with spiritual philosophy, and I work with a lot of young addicts, because addicts today are much different than addicts were a few years ago.
Right.
You've got an epidemic in Philadelphia and in New Jersey and on the East Coast and around the country of heroin now, and it's young people between the ages
that's exactly
of 16,
what it is.
16 and 26, because heroin's cheap. And what's happened to us is with technology and phones and download speeds and the internet and instant messaging, people have become even more immediate gratification oriented. They got to have it now. They got to have the message now. They got to have the download now. They got to send the pictures and send the information. Make the call. Quick. Used to be you wrote a letter, you put it in an envelope, you mailed it, you waited 2 weeks. The person got the letter. They wrote a letter back. 2 weeks later, you get a letter. It took a month to have a communication with somebody by letter.
Right.
Today, it's like you text somebody, and it's like, what is he, taking a shit? Where are you? I texted you 7 minutes ago. He's not answering me. Well, it's been 10 minutes. Maybe he's taking a shit. Maybe he's getting laid. Maybe he got shot in the head. The young people today have no spirituality, and the only thing they respect are music artists and athletes. They have no respect for authority, like we did. And so somebody's got to talk to these kids, and it's usually not a doctor or a judge or a therapist or a cop or their parents. It's got to be somebody they respect, somebody who's funny. You got to remember, my son's 6 years old. The minute I shut the Xbox off and he's not playing Mario Kart anymore, he gets bored immediately.
Right.
And that's what the young people are like today. They are living in a constant state of stimulation because they constantly have a device in their hand. And when they're not stimulated, they're bored. And, through life's challenges, some things take a little bit longer than how long it takes to download a song or rip and burn a song from, some free website. So kids, and when I say kids, I mean people maybe 15 to 25, 15 to 30 years old, young people, they don't have any patience at all. They don't have any spirituality. They expect everything right now. And, so the speed of life has picked up. And, we're still human beings. We're still just people. And a lot of these people turn to these really, but what it's doing is the drugs are finding out who the addicts are. And then, everybody is not an addict. Just because you use heroin doesn't mean you're a heroin addict. It catches the people who have addiction in their system. Some people don't have addiction. There was a study done, back in the Vietnam War. 95% of the guys that were over in Vietnam used heroin because of the fear factor and the craziness of being in Vietnam. And they anticipated that when all those guys came back, there was going to be a massive heroin problem with all of these soldiers. And as it turns out, when all these guys came home to safety, 90% of them didn't continue using heroin and didn't keep doing that stuff. Which just goes to show you that everybody's not an addict just because they use drugs. But the people who suffer from addiction are. And so I've taken my career and said, you know what? Okay, so I don't have a sitcom. I don't have a movie career. But what I do have is 24 years of sobriety, and I do have the ability to make people laugh. And fortunately, there are, a bunch of treatment centers that are happy to have me come in and pay me to work with their patients and help them laugh and find their funny spot. And in doing so, they become vulnerable and more open to being worked with. And I'm the only guy in the country doing that. I can't believe it, but I'm the only guy doing that. And I'm very, very grateful that I get to do it because I'm reaching a whole generation of young people whose lives are at stake, and I'm reaching them with humor and my personality and my experience as a sober person.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you could have been like everybody else and just gone the club route and, toured the country as a comedian in the clubs, but you're, like, doing something totally different where you're, like you said, you're using your talent as a comedian and a person who's been sober now, clean living for 24 years, and you're trying to, what's the big thing people are saying now? Pay it forward and trying to
right.
Help. Yeah.
Well, really, I'm not a great guy for doing that. Somebody's got to do it. I mean, the world is filled with comedians trying to become a sitcom star. Let's be honest. Look at the sitcom landscape right now. Look at the show business landscape right now. There's about 10 comedians in the whole planet, in America that have shows and are killing it. Kevin Hart, Amy Schumer, Whitney Cummings, Louis C.K., Mark Maron's got a show on the IFC channel that no one knows is there. I mean, there's about a dozen comedians that have TV shows. And there's hundreds of thousands of people out there that want to be comedians because of the lure of Hollywood and of the lure of being a famous comedian. And, there's the people that work for Chelsea lately. There's a few of those guys, Joe Coy and a couple of those people running around the country doing tour shows like that. But at the end of the day, I had my chance. Back when Ray Romano got his show, Everybody Loved Raymond, I had a show, and it didn't get picked up. And I was at a crossroads at that point. Ray's show got picked up, mine didn't. And I had to make a decision. And to be honest with you, this work, while I don't have $150 million in the bank like some of these people, this work is fulfilling. It makes the world a better place. And there's nothing more gratifying than when you take the time to try and help somebody who can't help themselves and you actually help them. And I'm not talking about going down to the mission and feeding people one day a year on Thanksgiving and taking a photo op. I'm talking about every day. Every day you can do something to help somebody that can't help themselves and help them help themselves. So I'm really trying to teach people how to fish as opposed to just handing them a fish.
Now, do you have people who, you've helped and been in touch with, over years that you remain in contact with?
Well, first of all, I have 12 guys that I get to sponsor. That's an amazing thing. That I have 12 guys that I meet with every Wednesday night at 7:30, and we sit down and we go through their life with a fine-tooth comb and we coach them up. I mean, I'm basically a coach, and I coach these guys. I've got those guys in my life, and then I've got the hundreds of kids that I go into treatment centers for 3 hours and do groups, and I try to dispense the wisdom and the spiritual philosophy to them, and I do it in a funny way. I'll ask them, who meditated, did affirmations, and prayed today, and no hands go up. So then I'll ask them, who brushed their teeth, and they all raise their hand. I said, so let me see if I understand this correctly. You're fighting cavities and bad breath, but the monster disease that's sucking the life out of your ass with a vacuum hose and taking your dignity and everything in your life that's of any importance, that you did nothing about, but you brushed your teeth. So what I try to teach them is that you have to take the action. Right. You have to change, and the only way to change, listen, the thing about people who have addiction is that their brain is broken. It's not that they're fucked up, that they're an idiot. Their brain is broken in a way that can never be fixed. Since your brain is broken, you can't think. You have to shut your brain off with meditation and stop using your brain. Secondly, every addict, if you tell them, hey, you look great today, their first thought is, what do you want from me? I look like shit. So their brain is telling them negative things all the time. You have to find an affirmation, a positive one. Like, I must have a purpose to my life because I'm not gone yet. I'm still here. I'm not dead. So you have to find an affirmation and a positive thought. You have to do meditation to shut your brain off at least once a day to start your day. And then finally, you have to ask the universe for your marching orders. I'll give you an example. Whales migrate from Alaska to Mexico every single year. No one tells them to. They just do. Bears hibernate for 5 months out of the year. No one tells them. They just do. You see what I mean? Beavers make dams. Different animals do different things. So you have to look at yourself and break it down to the lowest common denominator. We're a living thing on this planet. You're afflicted with this disease. Your thoughts are killing you. Your thoughts get you into trouble. Your thoughts have you doing things that you never thought you'd do. Therefore, shut the thoughts off. Do some meditation, do some affirmation, get some positive things going, and then pray. And a lot of people have a hard time with this because prayer is something that people have a hard time with. But
right.
you ask the universe, where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do? What do you want me to say? And to whom today? Guide my actions, guide my whereabouts, guide my thoughts and words, guide who I'm talking to. I need a lot of guidance because if I don't ask for this guidance, I end up thinking I'm a piece of shit. I end up hating the way I feel, and I end up wanting to completely get wasted in order to not feel how I feel. So it's the diametric opposite to using and getting high and escaping. What you do is you fully confront the truth of your existence and you try to deal with it in spiritual terms because that's the only choice you have. And
right.
That's why it's so hard. It's so hard for addicts to get that because so many of them are philosophically strong-willed and they have a problem with God, they have a problem with the universe. So you know what I say to them? I said, listen, forget about God. Well, if there's a God, what about leukemia? What about 9/11? What about terrorists? I said, forget about God, dude. The universe. Something is running the planet. All the most cool things that there are, Wi-Fi, gravity, magnetic fields, air, they're all invisible. You can't see them, but you know they're there. The same GPS that has the whales going on their migration annually from Alaska to Mexico to warmer water, the same GPS that tells all the other living things on Earth to grow and to survive and to go about their life cycle, their instincts. That's the life cycle we have to tap into if you're flawed in the way addicted people are flawed. You have to ask for that guidance. Otherwise, you'll just be going to get more drugs and more self-destruction. And that's kind of it. I mean, that's it in a nutshell.
Right.
No, it's the truth. It's not my opinion.
By you doing all this for as long as you've been doing it, has it been also helping you remain clean as well?
Well, yeah. It's incumbent to all people who get clean to help other people get clean because that's the truest essence of staying clean yourself is helping. Listen, I've helped thousands of people. I don't know what happened to all of them, but I know I'm still clean. So I'm selfless out of self-interest to some extent. You know, I mean, I do it because it helps me, but I don't do it because it helps me. I do it, surreptitiously it helps me. But at the same time, I get a tremendous amount of energy and inspiration from being the guy that flips the switch for a guy. Like, a dude came up to me. I was at Casper, Wyoming, and I was at a prison, and I did this presentation for like an hour, and this guy comes over to me and he goes, he must have been like 19 years old. He goes, dude, you melted my face, man. So I was like, I melted your face? What the fuck is that?
Right.
I said, is that good? And he goes, oh, yeah, man, it was an epic face melt. So I was like, an epic face melt. So I called my wife. I said, you're a little younger than me, what is an epic face melt? Like, what does it mean that I melted some kid's face? So she went online, and she found it online, and
she Googled
if you remember you remember the School of Rock with Jack Black?
Yes.
Well, he was talking about guitarists that do face-melting solos. So apparently there are 4 guitarists, Van Halen, Buddy Guy, Clapton, and somebody else, that do face melting solos. This kid. So this kid said, "You melted my face," and what he meant was, "You blew my mind, man. You rocked my world. You reached me, man, in a way that I'm totally blown away." You know, and that's what he said. But that's the whole point. You know, is that if you're reaching people and you're inspiring them and you're motivating them, what's more important than that? What, making a bunch of people who are drunk at a comedy club laugh their ass off and do what? So they can buy your T-shirt or something, or so they can give you a high five, or so you can get laid by some stranger, or, you know, I mean, like, that's really kind of what it is. Or you can look at the path of your life and say, okay, I was given these gifts of musical ability and talent and humor and my way of looking at the world. I was given the gift of getting clean, which a lot of people don't get to do. A lot of people die doing the shit I was doing. And if I combine the two greatest gifts that I have, which is being clean and sober and being funny, the natural extension for that would be to take my show, my talent, someplace where it could maybe help people to save their own life.
Right.
That's amazing. And it doesn't pay as well as being Kevin Hart or Chris Rock or Louis C.K. But as far as the universe is concerned, I'm doing the job that I was sent here to do. And
have you ever? I was gonna say, have you ever had like?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No, I was gonna say, have you had like fellow comedians like come to you and say like, why don't you come and do the circuit at all?
No, because it's a very singular thing. It's like comedians are you know, I mean, you're once you graduate from the basket of crabs, if you're not in a market like New York or L.A. or Cleveland or Toronto, like if you're not in the club scene, once you graduate out of the club scene, you know, I worked with all the great ones that you've heard of. You know, I've worked with Dave Attell and Colin Quinn and Louis C.K. and all these people who are famous on TV. And, you know, I worked in New York. I started in the open mic rooms of New York, and within 4 years of open micing in New York, I was on stage at Radio City opening for Donna Summer and touring the country with her. And I was a different kind of comedian. I was like an entertainer. Most of these guys are genius wordsmith, you know.
Right.
But then again, I also didn't have the luxury of being able to go behind the club and smoke a doobie with the guys or have a couple of shots of whiskey because, you know, I can't drink or drug. I had to deal with the raw fear of going on stage in front of people without any booze or drugs. And I'm not saying that all those guys do that, but what I am saying is that getting on stage in front of people is one of the scariest things there is to do on earth.
Sure.
And the fear, I don't know if you're Jewish, but there's an expression called shpilkus. And shpilkus is, you know, not just butterflies in your stomach, it's pterodactyls in your stomach. And people that are in the performing arts, like rock stars and comics, you know, people don't realize that immense amount of anxiety and stage fright. A lot of artists who perform are so terrified that they use drugs and alcohol to take the fear away.
Right.
And that gives them the courage. You know, they call it liquid courage, or they call it, you know, smoked courage, whatever it is. And they go on stage and they're able to function and they don't get, you know, sidetracked by fear. But then what happens is if they get too attached to the drugs and the alcohol doing it for them, they're afraid to stop because they're afraid that if they don't smoke dope or if they don't drink, they're not going to be funny.
Yeah.
See? And it's the same thing with drummers that take amphetamines, you know? I mean, they think they're faster and they're crisper when they're on speed, and they're afraid to work without drugs. They're afraid to just rely on their natural gift. I hadn't had that challenge. I mean, I got sober, and then I became a comedian at 29 years old because I always wanted to be a comedian because I saw Rickles perform, Don Rickles, when I was 6 years old. I wanted to be a comedian because I saw Rickles killing like a motherfucker, and he was killing like this 2,000-seat auditorium that my grandfather took me to see him perform up in the Catskills, and I said, I want to do that. But I've never had the luxury. I've always had to pray the fear away. So the reason why I know prayer works for me is because there's no time more terrifying than right before you're about to go on. And what I do is I pray. I have a whole process by which I meditate, I visualize my grandfather. I got a whole bunch of things I do in order to get rid of fear. And then I go on stage, and then I'm really creative. I'm really present. I'm really in the moment. I'm really lucid. And so that's my process. And it's amazing. And I still get to perform all over the country. I still get to do shows. But there's nothing more gratifying than getting a text or an email from somebody that just saw you at their treatment center and they got out of treatment and they tell you that they're doing everything that you told them to do and they're feeling much better and they're not going to get high this week. They're not going to get high today. I'm going to stay the course. Can I stay in touch with you? And I say, sure, absolutely. And so I've got dozens and hundreds of people that text me and keep in touch because I was just the guy that was present when the light came on, when their face got melted, let's say.
Right.
That's very gratifying. And it's a lot more gratifying than someone saying, oh, you're the funniest guy. Oh, you're so funny. Oh, you're amazingly funny. God, are you funny? I have your album. Oh, you're so funny. And it's like at some point it's just like, okay, so I'm so funny. I mean, look at Robin Williams. He used to destroy rooms of people and just people were laughing so hard they couldn't breathe, and he would walk out, and because he suffered from mental illness, he would say, I can't believe I can make all these people so happy and I'm not happy.
Yeah.
So that's the other extreme. You know, when you look at Philip Seymour Hoffman, who died of an overdose, here's a guy who was an incredible actor. He was sober a long time. And when he died, there were 52 bags of dope on the counter. I mean, that's how much dope he thought he needed for this next run he was on. And he died from one of the bags. So, you know, the extremes and, you know, and the it's just amazing. So when I look, it's really not about who's the funniest or who's the most talented. It's who is doing the best with the hand they were dealt. And these are my cards, man. I don't have aces in my hand. I've got 3s and 6s and a couple of jacks. So I play that hand. And that's my hand. I don't get to go to the Comedy Hall of Fame, and I don't feel sorry for myself. But what I do is I work for the universe, man. I'm out there in all the places. Hey, listen, if I was more successful and more famous and had more money, I wouldn't be inclined to do this work. I wouldn't be about changing the world. I'd be about selling my house to buy a better house. You know, or getting bored with my G5 and getting a G6 private plane or whatever. See? So I don't have to be plagued with any of those trappings. And then there's the other part. When you have lots of money, everybody you know who has lots of money, they don't really have the money. The money has them. Everybody who's famous, they don't really have that fame. The fame has them.
Right.
And they live in constant fear of running out of money and fame. So, and if I lived in Hollywood for, 11 years, and everyone is afraid of running out of fame. That day
Sure.
when they're no longer got the juice. Every woman who's an actress lives in constant fear of that day when she no longer has that youthful look and somebody behind her starts taking all her work. Every rock star. Every person that, achieves all of this massive amount of attention, they are terrified of the day when that attention is no longer there and they are no longer getting picked up from the airport in a stretch limo. So I guess I've been saved all of that, and I've had an opportunity because of my connectedness to do something that really, is gratifying and helps me and keeps me clean and sober. And if I wasn't clean and sober, I wouldn't have anything that I have today, and I have enough. I don't need more than I have. I have enough. I have what I need, and there are a lot of genius people. You guys were talking before about the great creative movies and the comic books, and You know,
Right.
the Kevin Smiths of the world, and these iconic, incredible people. You know, and this is my journey, and I'd best stay on it because this is the path that I'm on, and this is what I'm meant to do. So, you know, the hardest part for me several years ago was accepting that, and accepting the fact that that it wasn't going to be exciting all the time, and it wasn't going to result in me being, you know, the next Seinfeld or the next Ellen DeGeneres or the next this or the next that. You know, I'm me.
Right.
And I, you know, and just like everybody else, I've got to find a way to be happy about being me.
Well, it sounds like you found that way.
Yeah. Well, yeah. By turning my life over to the universe and saying, here, use me. The way I look at it is, I'm not an artist and I'm not a master. You know, I'm not the masterpiece. I'm the paintbrush. You know, Joey and I agree on that. Joey's the great artist, Joey Feldman. We were talking about that. It's like he's not the great artist and he's not the masterpiece. He's the tool that the talent uses in order to do great things. I'm just a tool. All my gifts, you know, well, I know you're laughing because you're a sick fuck, but yeah, I'm the paintbrush. I'm not the work of art. I'm not the great artist. I'm the paintbrush. I'm the tool. And in every case, wherever I go, I remember that because it keeps me right-sized. I don't have to be an egomaniac about it. That I'm a great guy, or that I'm some sort of star. I just go and I do what I'm supposed to do, and then I sleep better, and then I don't feel like getting high myself.
Now, you also you do it's like a charity or something, Sarge's Kids.
Yeah, well, my son was afflicted with sensory processing disorder. He had some real heavy-duty sensory issues when he was born, and out of that process, all kids with autism have sensory issues. Their sensory system gives them too much or not enough information about all the senses: sight, smell, taste, touch, hear. Their sensory system's off. And my son was born with that, and he's not autistic. He has all the sensory issues. All autistic kids have sensory issues, but not all kids with sensory issues have autism. My son doesn't have autism, but he has sensory issues. And so in the process of my wife and I working with him to help, he didn't eat until he was 4 years old. He wouldn't eat any food. He wouldn't put food in his mouth. His sensory issues were so horrific that he would not put food in his mouth. And so we had to go to a place in Denver, Colorado called the Star Center and get therapy for him. And we lived out there for several months. And they taught us how to do the therapy work that they do there. And we went home and continued the work from the time he was 2 until the time he was 4. And suddenly at 4 years old, he started to eat. And Monday he graduates kindergarten and he reads on a 7th grade level and he eats all the time. And he's just a miracle kid. Like, he just completely changed. But from that process, I decided that I wanted to help because of how bad insurance is. It doesn't cover any of this. It's all out of pocket. I wanted to help families get the same help that we got. So I formed a 501c3 charity called SARGE Kids. And a lot of the shows I do during the year and a lot of the sales of my merch and book sales goes to the charity. And then I'm able to help scholarship families and kids to go to this place in Denver that helps kids with this issue. So, once again, I mean, I always thought that I would become a big star and make a lot of money, and then I would help a lot of people with philanthropy. And what I found out was you don't have to be a big star and have a lot of money in order to help people with philanthropy. You just have to give of your time. If you can't stroke a check, then you give your time. You show up in person.
You're giving, it sounds like almost all your time.
No. You know what? It doesn't take it takes some time, but really, when your heart's in it, it becomes part of your life. And my family, like my wife and my kid, I mean, I don't spend anywhere near as much time on the road as some of my colleagues because I determined that I wanted to be home for my son as much as I could. I did not want to be one of those showbiz dads who was always away, and everyone had to just understand that Daddy's making money and he's not home ever. And as it turns out, I minimize the amount of time that I'm away. Instead of going away for 2 weeks, I go away 3 different times for 2 days each. And I'm home for my son a lot, and I'm home for my wife a lot. And you can make your life any way you want to make it. You don't have to just say, well, this is how it is. I guess this is what I'm going to do. You know,
right.
What you can do is you can say, you know what, I'm going to be a comedian. I'm going to work the road, and I'm going to trust the universe. And you know what? When there's work that comes up, I'm not going to go away for 6 weeks. I used to be away for 45 weeks out of 52. Back before I was, you know, before this marriage and before my son was born, I was gone, and I had no life. I had my friends would leave messages on my phone machine. I don't know if you're going to get this. I don't know if you're in town or not. You're probably not. You're probably on the road. I was on the road 45 weeks out of the year, and I literally missed all holidays, all birthdays, all weddings, all celebrations, all everything. And I was somewhere doing some, you know, Yacky Shack. I was on cruise ships. I was in comedy clubs. I was everywhere, hustling. And today, I make more money. I work less weeks out of the year running around the world. You know, that's all anxiety, man. That's all fear. Running,
right.
going. It's all fear.
Mm-hmm.
Fear of running out of gigs, fear of running out of money, fear of running out of, you know, opportunities. So what I do is I said, you know what? I'm going to stop running. I'm going to be here for my son. I'm going to be here for my wife, because once your wife and kids decide that they can get along without you, they do.
Yeah.
And Alan King, a very famous comedian, before he passed away, I got to be backstage with him one night in his dressing room. We were talking, and I said, do you have any regrets? He goes, well, I was a horrible father. I wasn't much of a son, and I was a terrible husband. He says, and you don't get do-overs in life. He says, if you ever have a chance, he says, be a good husband, be a good father, be a good son, and the Sarge part will take care of itself. And you know what? I took that advice, and ever since I've dedicated myself to that, it's been an amazing life, and I haven't been away 45 weeks out of the year. I'm away 20.
Wow. Yeah, that's
I'm
a big
home
difference.
more than I'm not home. Yeah, it's a major difference. I do one-nighters. Like last week I was in Jersey. I had to fly up to, I was in Maplewood, New Jersey, over by Edison. I flew into Newark on Saturday morning. I did a show Saturday night. I flew back Sunday morning. I was home. The week before that, I was in another part of Jersey. The week before that, I was in Chicago. Fly in day of, do the show, fly home next day. I don't have to see Chicago. I got to be home to play ball with my kid. That's more important, because if my kid grows up, I never want him to say my dad was never home. I grew up without a dad, you know. So my dad was home, and I wished he was never home when I was growing up. I wish my dad was on the... Yeah, well, my dad was he's a little bit of a mean guy, and he wasn't the coolest guy. He wasn't into anything I was into, and we really never saw eye to eye. Now he's 87, and I've got to be a good son no matter what he was like as a dad. And you know, that's another piece of growing up, is you got to do what you got to do. But my kid, you know, he knows that Daddy's coming home tomorrow. Daddy just left yesterday. He'll be back in 48 hours. And listen, I can live like that. It's awesome. I get to do everything.
Right.
I get to do everything, and I get to be a dad, because ultimately he's 6. By the time he's 16, he won't want shit to do with me. He'll have his chicks, he'll have his friends, he'll have other shit he's doing. He won't want to talk to me. So right now, I'm enjoying having a little man, you know, who's my little man, and that's why. And once again, that's why I wrote the book. I wrote the book so that in case I leave before I'm supposed to, or before he grows up, he'll have this book. And the book is really a how-to on how to be happy, how to live with life's challenges, how to do all that, you know. And it's available on Amazon. It's available on my website at IamSarge.com. The prison film is available on IamSarge.com. Sarge Behind Bars. That's me doing my inspirational stuff in the prison in Wyoming. And I'm shooting another film coming up in 2 months in Virginia at another prison up in Fairfax, at a prison of 950 inmates who are in the recovery program up there. So that'll be the second installment of Sarge Behind Bars, Virginia. So I'm just going to keep doing stuff, and I'm just going to keep putting it out there, and I'm just going to keep helping people as much as I can, and have it not be about me as much as possible, and see where that takes me, see where that goes, and not worry about it. You know, that's the true essence of giving. It's to give and not to get anything back in return. Just give.
Right.
That feels better than the hidden agenda.
You are the giver. I mean, that's you're giving. You've become a happier person in life. It sounds like you've become happy with yourself. It's like things have completed. That circle has closed.
I'm totally driven.
There you go. You are totally driven. You are the definition of totally driven.
I'm totally driven, and I'm totally fortunate.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
So, are you coming back to the Philly area anytime soon, or?
I will be coming back to that area in August, and I will certainly make it so that you can come if you're in the area. Come see the show. Come visit with me. Come hang out. Come have a meal. They usually give me a pretty liberal spread backstage, but also we could go out after the show. We can go hang out someplace. You can take me someplace you think is cool.
I'm not on the book anywhere, though.
What do you mean you're not on the book?
I'm not in the book.
Oh, that's all right. I'll buy. It'll be on. It'll be on me.
Yeah. My buddy just said, I thought you were on the book at Hooters. Hooters was like my favorite spot to go to, and I haven't been to a Hooters in almost 3 months.
I like Hooters. I got to tell you something. I went to Buffalo Wild Wings, and I was really unimpressed.
God, they're horrible.
Boy, is that horrible. How have they risen to national prominence? Their food is such crap.
It is.
God, I think, oh my God, I was on the road somewhere. I don't even remember where I was. It was a cold, rainy night. I did a show. I was starving. Their sign is really pretty. So I pulled in there. I'd seen the commercial 800 times. I went to get something to eat. I couldn't believe the food was so bad. I actually called the manager over and I said, "Hey, can I ask you something? Is it just an off night in the kitchen, or is this what you do all the time?" He goes, "Why? What's wrong?" I said, "What's wrong? This is. I would rather rake a Dorito in my ass crack when I had diarrhea than eat this." He goes, "Well, I'll take it off the check." I said, "There should be no check. Just take everything back except for the Diet Coke, and I'll go try." I couldn't believe I went and found a fucking Denny's, which you might as well just bring my Lanta with you. Denny's is 5 steps above Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah, I haven't been to I went to a Buffalo Wild Wings I think once to try them, and that was it. I was not impressed.
Do you have Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza in Philly?
I never heard of them.
Oh, they haven't gotten to Philly yet. Then you guys have so much great stuff in Philly anyway, so it's like you don't need anything.
Yeah, the new hot spot for me here in Philly because of their wings is called PJ Wheelhands.
Oh yeah, it's the local place.
Yeah, they have a bunch of them, and they it's funny because there's literally a Hooters 10 minutes from my house. They opened the Buffalo Wild Wings like a football field away. Down the street from it, and about a mile the other direction is a PJ Wheelhands, and PJ's blows them all away. So I've been going there for their wings.
That's where you go. Absolutely. I'm not big into wings anyway. I usually order drumsticks. I'm not big into wings. I like drumsticks. So any place I go that has wings, I'll usually see if they can get some drum. There's a place called Anthony's Coal-Fired Pizza. We're back to food. We started with food, and now we're back to food.
We're going full circle.
with a whole bunch of cool shit in between.
You can, and people, comedians need to do, like, you should do a routine on wings, because eating buffalo wings is absolute. I say this every time when I'm having them with my wife. I said, this is the most unattractive food to eat.
Yeah, it is. Well, I like chicken livers. That's pretty gross too. They have, there's some. Are you Jewish?
No, I'm Italian, Catholic.
You're Italian. Oh, you don't eat anything gross. Then you eat all kinds. Well, scungili is pretty gross. I mean, if you think about it. Scungili. Squid.
I don't eat it.
Squid.
I don't eat it.
You don't eat it?
Don't eat it.
Yeah.
No.
I do like calamari. Which is
I'll eat fried calamari.
Fried calamari is good. But, I mean, anything fried is good.
Exactly.
Tell people, exactly. Anything fried is good. Yeah, my first paid gig was in an Italian place down in Little Italy in New York, and they had really good food. And, they were putting me on every Sunday night. It was my first paid gig, and I went down to an open mic, and I auditioned for the guy, and they said, yeah, Johnny the Cobra wants to meet you. Or the cougar, or he was some animal, So I go in the back room, and this guy's back there. He goes, yeah. He says, what do you do on Sunday nights? I said, I don't know. He goes, come down here. Every week, come down here. I said, okay. He says, I'll pay you $25. You can have a mochaccino. You can have a capicola. You can have whatever you want. I said, all right. So I couldn't believe it. I went home. I told my buddy. I said, I got a gig. He says, what do you mean? Every Sunday night, I'm working for $25. So I went to this place. I start working there every week, and I only had 10 minutes of material. So the guy goes, I need you to do an hour. So I said, I can't do it. I only have 10 minutes. He says, that's all right. Just do it 6 times. I said, what? I said, you got to be kidding me. He goes, yeah, just start over. When you get to the end of your 10 minutes, he says, just do it again. Just keep doing it. He says, do it as loud as you want. I said, okay. So this guy hires me. I'm doing the gig a few weeks. And then every Sunday I'm going down there. I'm having a full meal. I'm getting a little bit of this what's it called, pasta fagioli, and I'm having some dessert.
Pasta fagioli.
Pasta fagioli, and I had a full Yedel with a double espresso. So now I go on stage. I do my 10 minutes 6 times. So one week I get a call in the middle of the week from this agent in New York. He says, this guy Roger, he says, hey, listen, I got a gig for you in Virginia. I said, really? He goes, yeah, it's like $500 for the weekend. You just got to drive to Virginia. I said, I'm on my way. So I left. So I forgot about my gig at this Italian joint down in Little Italy. I went and did the gig. I know. And you just said, uh-oh, so you know what's coming, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I go to Virginia. I do the gig. I drive back. This is in the days before cell phones, right? So I couldn't check my messages from the road. I get home. I got 38 messages on the phone machine. So I play them, and it says, it's 10 to 8. I don't see your fat fucking face. It's 5 to 8. You're not fucking here yet. It's 1 to 8. If your fat ass doesn't walk through the door, don't even bother. You're dead.
I was just going to say, you're fucking dead to me.
And then there's 30 hang-ups. There's like 30 hang-ups. So I'm home about 10 minutes. I put my luggage down. I take a piss, standing around the apartment. I'm wondering about this thing. I said, oh, shit, I forgot to go down to this club on Sunday night. So the phone rings. I pick it up. The guy says, yeah, I got him on the phone right here. He didn't even say hello. He goes, yeah, I got him on the phone. So this guy comes on the phone. He says, you come down to the club right now. You understand? The cougar wants to talk to you, or the leopard. I forget. He had some sort of name, like from the forest. So I said, okay. Yeah, Johnny the cougar, or Johnny the leopard, Johnny the tiger, whatever it was. So I jump in a taxi. I go downtown. I go to the place. I walk in. Guy's waiting for me. I go in. He says, "You were supposed to be here on Sunday." I said, "Yeah. I'm sorry. I had to go to Virginia." So he goes, "Virginia?" He says, "Why? What's in Virginia?" I said, "Well, they offered me a gig down there." He says, "You have a gig." He says, "You have a gig here every Sunday. Until I tell you don't work here, you work here." So I said, "I understand, sir." I said, "But," he says, "What? Was the money you want?" He comes out of his pocket with a big roll of cash. He throws it on the table. He goes, "Here, I'll give you more money. How much you want? $50, $100? How much you want to come on Sunday?" I said, "Well, that's not the point." I said, "The guy offered me $500 for the weekend." He goes, "Here's $500. So I said, no, it's very kind. It's very generous. He says, "Let me tell you something." He says, "You come here on Sunday. You miss one Sunday. you're dead. Do you understand? I said, yeah, I understand. I'm very, very sorry. He says, good. He says, now get the fuck out of my sight. So I leave there, and I come in that Sunday. I do my now I have 15 minutes, so I only have to do the same set 4 times. So now I do my thing, couple weeks, no problem. About 3 weeks later, I go down to to do my thing on Sunday night. The place is gone. There's nothing there. There's a charred. The whole place burned down.
Oh,
there's a piece of yellow police tape, and there's a smoldering lot in a where the place used to be. So I guess my contract was canceled.
Yeah.
So the place was gone. So I don't know. I forgot all about it. I didn't know what to do. I figured, okay, well, the place is gone. They had one of those, one of those fires. So I don't know. A couple years goes by. I'm in Atlantic City. I'm on stage at Caesars, and I'm performing at Caesars Palace in Atlantic City. And I notice a friend of mine is in the front row. He's got a couple of girls with him. So after the set, he comes backstage with me, and he's kind of one of these guys that's involved in the life, in that life.
Right.
And we start talking, and he says, I had no idea you were the Sarge they were talking about. I said, who was talking about? He says, yeah. He says, you used to work at this place in Little Italy, huh? I said, yeah. He says, yeah. He says, those were my friends down there, those guys that ran that place. I said, really? He says, yeah. He says, can you believe what you were doing? I said, what do you mean? And he goes, well, you were doing the same jokes over and over again for like an hour, right? I said, yeah. He says, yeah. He says, they used to have their meeting over there in the club on Sunday nights. He says, and they used to put you on because you were so loud, you would drown out the surveillance. He said the guy's listening in the van a couple blocks away with the headphones. He says, you were the joke that they were playing on the guys listening, trying to hear what was going on at the club.
Oh, that's freaking classic.
So they would have me do my show and do the same jokes over and over again while they were having their meeting. They could talk, they could do whatever they wanted over there, and no one could hear them because I was up on stage screaming my ass off, doing these same 10 minutes 6 times, and it was pissing off the guys listening, I guess, because they go, the guy's doing the same jokes again. He just keeps doing the same jokes over and over again, and that's what I was doing. And that was my gig. That was my first paid gig. A joke
that is a classic.
That the mob was playing on the FBI surveillance guys. I know. And it's amazing, right?
Should I ask how the fire was started?
I have no idea. And, it could have been some hot wings. I have no idea. But it's one of those things that I'm actually glad, because if it didn't burn down, I might still be working there.
Oh. Hey, but you'd be eating good, right?
Oh, yeah. But, all gigs come with food now, so it's not a problem.
Not a problem.
All gigs come with airfare. They come with airfare and food and all that, so.
Life has gotten good. So
life has gotten good.
The book, again, where can we find the book?
You can find the book on iamsarge.com, 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 and there are print copies there, or you can download it to your Kindle, ebook, whatever you want, or you can go on Amazon if you want. It's cheap, it's easy. I think it's $4.99 or something, and it's a great read. I didn't read it, and I swear to you, it's shocking to me. But everyone's telling me by email, my friends who read books all the time, they read all kinds of showbiz biographies. My friend Rick Corso, who's a great comedian, he reads all kinds of showbiz bios. He goes, Sarge, he says, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. He goes, it's a great read. It's hilarious. The story, you know what it is? The stories in the book are tight because as a storyteller, as a comedian, I had 23 years of working on stage to tighten up all the stories.
Right.
So when I sat down to write them, all the punchlines, all the funny parts, all the stuff that I'd worked out already was already in the right places. So all I did was document my entire life and story. I've told all the stories, like the story I just told you.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's one of the stories in the book, but it's one of the stories from my life. All the stories from my life, I've had a chance to flesh out on stage. So when I went to write them, they were really tight. So the narratives and all the things that are in the book are funny and poignant and apparently really well written. I didn't even realize it because I never wrote a book before. This is my first book. And so, yeah, I'm getting a lot of compliments and a lot of good reviews.
Nice. And
I can't believe it because, you know, I mean, the first time someone came up to me, I was at a convention in San Diego, and a woman came up to me and she said, I read your book. Like, I just sold them. I was doing a book signing, and some woman came and bought the book, and then the next day she ran into me. I didn't even know who she was. She says, I read your book, and I didn't even know how to answer her. I said, you read my book? She goes, yeah, I read your book. And I said, you did? Was it good? She goes, oh, I loved it. I couldn't put it down. I said, you couldn't put it down? I said, was it funny? She goes, oh, it was hilarious. I was laughing out loud. I said, you were laughing out loud? I had no idea how to respond to somebody. Like, you know, if somebody listens to your podcast, somebody listens to your show, they say, oh, it was a great show the other night, and say, which part did you listen to? And they tell you, you know, you're used to talking about that. But when somebody reads your book, you can't believe it. You actually want to interview them.
I'll tell you what. You know what? For me. I mean, like I said, I was in the world of pro wrestling. I've played in a band for a number of years. That situation, whenever it's happened, it's very awkward.
Right. It's unusual because I'm not used to that. I'm used to people coming up to me outside of a theater because I end up at a table usually with merchandise, and they talk to me about how much they enjoyed the show. I'm used to that. But I'm not used to someone saying, I went someplace comfortable and private, and I read your book, and I finished the whole thing in like 4 or 5 hours. And I'm like, it was that interesting to you? Because when you've lived it, you don't realize how interesting your life might be to somebody else.
That's true.
And until you put it out there, and until you put it down on paper, and until you publish it, and you let people read it, it actually takes, I didn't realize this, but it takes a lot of courage to put your life on paper and then hand it to people and say, here, read this. Tell me what you think. You know.
Was there anything you filtered out?
No. I mean, no. There's nothing I filtered out. I mean, I talked about my first marriage. I talk about my present marriage. I talk about my child. I talk about my life. I talk about being homeless, drug addiction, my years in the modeling industry in New York, my years in college, all my failures, all my successes, all the amazing stuff, the embarrassing stuff, the humiliating stuff. You know, once you've been on stage and you've talked about your life, and once you've shared, once you've been in recovery for a while, you kind of lose your there's nothing you won't talk about.
Right.
You become very transparent. You know, there's nothing that I won't talk about. There's nothing I'm uncomfortable talking about because I have nothing to hide. You know, and you watch the news, you'll see things that are much more shocking than anything that's happened in my life.
Oh, that's true. That is true.
Every day that goes by, I'm watching this woman today on TV. She slit one of her kids' throat and she strangled the other one. All because she was in a custody battle with her husband, and she didn't want him to get the kids, so she killed them. I mean, this is what goes on in the world. Not to mention the beatings and the cop shootings and all the stuff that goes on. I mean, I don't even have to. But the thing is, we all need to be entertained. We all need to be inspired. We all need to be motivated. So if my little life can give somebody a little bit of motivation, a little bit of inspiration, if my presentation somewhere can give people a little bit of motivation, if my show can, you know, relieve somebody's stress or take them away from the fact that they're sick or their husband died or whatever, and they can enjoy themselves for 2 hours, then I'm as good as any movie or any TV show.
There you go.
So, I mean, who knew what to expect tonight, on your show? I mean, you kind of did some research, but you didn't know whether it was going to be a good hour or two. You just figured, yeah, sounds great. I spoke to Nadine. This sounds like a good idea. Good, put him in there. It sounds different. But you have no idea what it's going to be. And then, people who are listening, I have no idea. 9 people are listening, 90 people, 900, 19. It
right.
doesn't matter. They'll check it out on the archives. It's a good listen.
That's the beautiful thing of podcasting.
Yep. Yeah, I want to thank you for having me on and giving me, this much time to hang out with you. And I'm only sorry I didn't get to meet the other guys. I didn't get to meet the other guys, but hopefully I'll see you guys down the road.
Absolutely. Yeah, when you come to Philly, we got to hook it up. I got your number, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to touch base with you about that other stuff.
Good, and touch base with me on that, and also get in touch with Joey.
I will.
I will.
I'm going to shoot him a text. Yeah.
Has he been on your show?
Yeah, he's been on a few times.
Oh, he's great.
We had him on
he's a sick
when
fuck.
he did the when he did the art show. I guess late last year. It's the last time we had him on.
Yeah, he's one of those guys. He finally devoted himself 1,000% body and soul to his creativity, to his art, which he was afraid to do.
Sure.
And ultimately he will be successful, and he will make a living from his creations. I've got 5 of his things hanging in my house.
Do you really?
Oh, when I went to that show in L.A. when he had that opening, and
right.
at the Village Studios, and he did a co-show with one of the guys from some big rock band. I forget what it was.
Colt.
Yeah. And I went to that show, and I said, listen, I want 5 pieces. You pick which ones they are. I want a couple of originals. I want a couple of lithos, a couple of, prints. I said, just tell me how much it is. Just send it to me in a tube. Took him about a month. I had a badger him. I sent him the money, and I had to wait for the shit. I waited for the shit. Finally, I got this tube and some of the coolest shit I've ever seen. I said, you pick the 5.
You got to ask him about when he was living in Philly. He had the coolest apartment. He lived over by 9th Street by the Italian Market. It was an old elementary school or something, and he rented out it was like the old gymnasium was his freaking apartment. It was like one giant room was his apartment. It was awesome.
Wow. I got to ask him about that. I'm going to see him this week. I'm going to see him Sunday, Monday. So
yeah.
I'll see him. Yeah. I'll see him on. I'll probably see him on Sunday night. So I'll ask
him
about that. How do you spell your first name?
Bay, B-A-Y.
B-A-Y. Bay Ragney?
Yep.
All right. Good. Excellent. Super cool.
Very cool. Cool.
Thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely. So everybody needs to go to the website. I am Sarge. Get the book. Keep up to date with you. They can follow you on Twitter at Sarge99. Facebook is Sarge and Enlarge.
Actually, just go to Comedian Sarge. Just Comedian Sarge Pickman. They could just go to Comedian Sarge or Sarge and in Charge.
That's it, Sarge and in Charge.
Comedian Sarge or Sarge99 on Twitter. I don't do a lot of Twitter. I do more Facebook, Comedian Sarge, or they can go to my website to communicate directly with me. And by the way, if anybody has problems with drugs or alcohol and they need help, feel free. Go to my website, get in touch with me. If I can help you, I will. If I can put you in touch with the right resources, I will. I'm not a broker. I'm not a salesman for any treatment center. I work at them, but I don't work for them. So, if I can get you help and you need help, that's another avenue, man. Just reach out and let's start the conversation and see if we can get you some help.
Absolutely.
That's the most important thing, Bay.
Absolutely. I really appreciate everything, and I'll definitely be in touch. I'll shoot you a text tomorrow, and we'll hook some things up.
Cool, Bay. Thanks a lot, man. Be well. God
Thank
bless.
you.
Say hello to Moondog.
Moondog, wake up.
Moondog, wake up. Get your feet off the desk. Thanks, dude.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Take care.
It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. All right, everybody, there he goes. Sarge. Sergeant in charge. Good dude.
Sergeant in charge.
I got to go to sleep.
One motivated dude right there.
He is, man. He is.
You're way past your bedtime.